Tiffany, oh, there she goes. All right, now you go. Now you can go.
Okay. Welcome to the HAB meeting for June 2022. The meeting will be recorded. And I'm Michael Lucchese, the chair. I'm going to start with our roll call. Philip Ogren.
Here.
Juliet Boone. Oh, you muted, but I can see you.
I hear.
Julianne Ramsey.
Here.
Great. Great to see you. Terry Pamos. And Jen Livovich. Have I forgotten a member, or is that everybody?
Danny.
Danny, okay, I'm of course my vice chair. Oh yeah, things are going to be sharp in this meeting. Danny Teodoro. Okay, well, we do have a quorum and we will proceed. I'm going to start by welcoming the new comprehensive planning manager for planning and development services, Christopher Johnson, who I understand has been on the job for all of 6 weeks. You want to say hi, Christopher?
Sure, happy to do so. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Housing Advisory Board folks. I am new to the city, here city organization in Boulder. Been on the job for about 6 weeks. It is a bit of a mouthful, the comprehensive planning manager and planning and development services, but essentially what I will do is lead our long range planning team, historic preservation, and also wildlife planning as well. And I come here with a history, most recently working for the last 5 years in the city and county of Denver. Did a lot of zoning regulations and updates in the downtown area, and also was responsible for integrating their new mandatory affordable housing program into the zoning code and updating any existing incentives that were in the zoning in Denver. So certainly have an interest in and a little bit of experience in affordable housing. So I'm excited to continue that forward here in Boulder.
Can I make a request that we, when someone else is speaking, everyone else mute? Because I don't know if you guys are getting feedback or if it's just me, but I had a little bit of trouble hearing Christopher. I could make it out, but I got some feedback.
Yeah.
Anyone else having that too? Yeah, I think if
Yes.
we all mute while someone's talking, we should be good. Thanks. Thanks, Christopher.
Thank you for pointing that out, Juliet. We have another new city person to introduce, Holly Hendrickson. Holly, please say hi, and I'll mute along with everyone else.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Yeah, I started just, I think maybe 3 weeks ago. So I beat Christopher by just a bit here. I'll be working with Jay pretty closely on the planning and policy stuff. Right now, he has tasked me with some middle income work, potentially ADU, kind of like all the things in the hopper. I think I'll be helping Jay with. And I come from a background from the private sector. So I was working at a small consulting firm called TDA Consulting, working in affordable housing and community development. So I'm very familiar with the space and the issues involved. So like I said, glad to be here and happy to kind of learn about all that you do here.
Holly mentioned your role with Habitat as well.
Oh yes, I was on the board of Habitat for Humanity, the Flatirons wing of Habitat Humanity, and just left that this month as a result of this new position. So
Great, and welcome. I missed that part about your work in the private sector. Did you mention a particular position that you held?
Yeah, I was a project manager at TDA Consulting. I don't know, it's a pretty small firm working all over the US.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I know we also have John Gersel of the Planning Board on the call. He is the liaison between the Planning Board and HAB, and welcome, John. It's always good to see you.
Thank you.
I'll review the agenda. So we've already gone through items 1 and 2 on the agenda, and 3 is reviewing the agenda. 4 will be reviewing and approving the minutes. 5, we will have an opportunity for public participation with 3 minutes for open comment. I'll have more to say about that in a moment. We have matters from the board as number 6. I've drafted a letter for HAB's consideration to vote on, to make a recommendation to council. And we'll be reviewing the ADU regulations, and Jay Signet, our own staff liaison, will be leading that discussion. Then we'll have number 7, matters from the staff, debrief the meeting and do a calendar check and make sure everyone has the next meeting on their calendar, and we'll adjourn, I hope no later than 9 p.m. So with that, I think you've all had a chance to see the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from May 25th, 2022?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, and that looked like a second from,
I second.
very good, thank you. All in favor of approving the May 25th, 2022 minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item 5, public participation. Do we have any members of the public here to participate? Okay, well, this is interesting. We had some disruptions from this portion of the meeting last month, and Jay and I and Danny have discussed this. It won't happen again. We'll be stating the rules of engagement very clearly at the beginning of meetings, and take action if we need to, if there are disruptive comments. But that won't happen tonight, thank God. That brings us to item 6, letter to council urging action on TVAP phase 2 and the planning reserve. This is something I talked about with Danny. I drafted about a month ago. People weren't quite ready to review it last month. I sent it out a couple of times this month with some comments, and love to have some discussion on that and see if we're ready to vote on that and actually send a recommendation to council. Philip, you usually have a comment on something. Feel like the teacher, have to call on somebody.
I'm sorry. You sent it to my personal email instead of my Boulder email. I'll have to send that to you after the meeting. So I'm having a little trouble locating it at the moment. This is the draft of the letter to City Council. Is that right?
Yes, it's a 3-paragraph letter. I drafted it on May 12th, and apologize. Jay had advised me to send that to everyone individually, I think. No, I think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
No, Philip, it's actually in the packet.
Oh, it's in the packet, that's right.
Yeah. So it's right after the minutes.
I withdraw my apology.
Oh, yeah. It's like the one thing in the packet. I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, if folks haven't had a chance to read it yet, I would suggest that you take a minute to read it. I don't think we're gonna have a long meeting and not put off discussing it. John, question?
Yeah, thanks for letting me spout off a little bit. I read this and certainly understand the motivation and the reason for sending it. From a practical viewpoint, I think that the development of the planning reserve and the Transit Village Area Plan 2 are very significantly different activities, and will lead to and require different processes to move ahead with. So I was just thinking that it may be useful to separate the letter, or at least separate the discussion of each of those two areas, development processes. For example, I think the TVAP 2 is far more likely to move ahead quickly than the planning reserve activities, and it may be useful for you just to indicate that you're aware of that, and by separating your discussion of those two proposals. So that's all.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting comment. The thinking that behind this is that both processes are fairly long, and you need to take a first step to get the ball rolling on either one. But I'm certainly be open to separating the letters, amending it into part 1, part 2. It seems like a reasonable suggestion.
Anyway, not being one of the signatories here, or
Right. I understand.
it's just my 2 bits worth.
Yeah. And that's a thoughtful comment. I appreciate it.
I don't have much to say about it. I am I guess the comment that John just made seems I guess I don't know like what we expect city council to do with this. Like that's not like their hands are tied with respect to approving the letter or not approving it or approving half of it. I think it's a recommendation that we're making, and it includes 2 bullet points. And I don't know, to me it feels like, being someone who's never watched how these letters of recommendation work and what ends up with them, my kind of naive point of view is that it's fine as is.
Okay. Juliet, do you have a comment?
My comment is this is out of my area of expertise, and I think we're recommending council to think about spending money on consultants without really knowing what that costs and what else is going on and what other considerations the council has. So to me, I would abstain from voting on this because I don't necessarily see. I'm pretty ambivalent about it, about whether this is even something worth putting forth to the council as a recommendation. That's my opinion.
Jay, I believe we did have some discussion about Juliet's point that there would have to be consultants engaged, and that's part of the process to set the technical, to get the technical standards going to make things happen. You want to reiterate? I mean, you're really the expert on this. What we discussed. Juliet might have missed one of those meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I recall from the discussion that Michael led in the last couple of meetings is that this is already a council priority, both of these projects. It's 2 of the 10. And the discussion earlier was these 2, because they have such a long lead time and all the consultant the work that has to happen, that it's important to get it going sooner rather than later. And council already went through the process of trying to determine priorities and which are more important versus less important, and they basically identified all 10 as important. So I don't know, that's the only context I cannot really offer, Juliet, but I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, so what you're saying, Michael, is we should, from our perspective, we should recommend these as a higher priority than the others. I guess I don't feel like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if that's what you're suggesting, I don't know that I'm qualified to make that recommendation based on having a full broad understanding of where the other priorities rank. And honestly, from a budgetary standpoint, it's hard for me to know. I'm always careful about when it comes to making recommendations to spend money.
Right. Well, I think we have had this discussion about where can we achieve the most progress on creating a future for missing middle housing. And that's kind of where this conversation has gone, looking at those 7 council priorities and narrowing them down a little bit to say, yeah, this is HAB's priority. Council has identified it, and here are 2 specific areas we think you should focus on. I think it's actually a fairly innocuous step. But at the same time, it shows that we are aligning with the council and trying to help them sort out their priorities. So I think it's worth considering. And we're not recommending, spend $100,000. You have to read between the lines to unpack that conclusion. But, reality is that that's going to have to happen for progress to move forward on any of these projects or these two particular big ones. Julianne, do you have anything to add?
I don't really have anything big to say about it. I guess I started off being a little bit confused with the hiring consultant stuff, but it makes sense if that's like one of the first steps here. And yeah, I guess since they have like 10 things on their priority list, I'm glad that we're outlining a couple of the ones that we think are the most important. Yeah.
And Michael, it just so happens that, Christopher is going to be the one leading both of those efforts. So, I mean, you could also ask him his thoughts about how this fits into the work.
Yeah. Well, it would be useful for everybody. And Julianne is a new board member. I'd just love to get your perspective on, really a quick outline of the process to eventually achieve some of these goals for creating more missing middle housing at these two particular sites.
Yeah, sure. And take what I say with a slight grain of salt, since this is all new information to me as well. But, as Jay mentioned, City Council has already identified 10 priority projects for, essentially this year and next year. We in our comprehensive planning group have already identified both of these on our work plans coming forward. It's likely that the Boulder Junction or Transit Village Area Plan Phase 2 will move forward sooner than the planning reserve study. And I think actually Mr. Gersel made a good distinction between these two things in terms of, the TVAP2 study is much more robust. It's it's already an urbanized site. It's redevelopment potential. There's transit available in that location. So all of those things are going to enable that process to move forward much more quickly. The planning reserve study is really, at this moment, it is a very sort of foundational study of what it's going to take to extend municipal services, both in sort of the hard infrastructure, roads, water, electricity, et cetera, and the more programmatic infrastructure, things like schools, fire, police, et cetera. So the planning reserve study is very technical at this point, and really won't get into a lot of discussion about uses or affordable housing or parks or any of those kinds of things. It's really more about just the sort of fundamental infrastructure that would be required for that area to even develop at some point in future generations. So the phase 2 of Boulder Junction is really, I think, where our primary focus is going to be over the next 18-24 months.
Thank you, Christopher. Well, one thing I meant to announce earlier is that Jen Livovich has resigned from the board. She felt there was just too much going on with her organization, feet forward, and she needed to focus on that. So it's likely we will be 6 for a while. Given Juliet's comment, I know I can foresee that we're not going to pass this recommendation tonight, but I would love to have a discussion about revising it, which I'd be happy to do. Maybe taking John Gersel's suggestion or another tack. I do think it's important to let council know that we're paying attention and on board on these issues, but it doesn't have to happen tonight.
Was that an invitation for more open discussion?
You're very perceptive. Phil. Very, very perceptive.
I'll just make a comment that the way I read the letter was that we're excited about these projects and that we recommend them. It hadn't occurred to me what Juliet said about thinking about relative priorities and recommending spending. I guess I didn't realize the letter had that much import in the sense of like it might be used to weigh how city council reorients spending or prioritizes its work plan. I mean, to me, it's just given all that I've heard so far, it seems like it won't be taken super seriously or have a lot of import, and that the I mean, I don't mean to completely trivialize it, but like to me, I would just like to communicate to city council that we really care about these two projects and we're excited about them. We'd like to see them get started, and they can point to something that says that we're excited about them. So that's kind of how I read it. And I just want to reiterate that I am excited about both projects. It was really cool to look at the map that Jay shared with us last time that outlines what TVAP Phase 2 is going to look like. I loved your point about, Michael, about high expectations for 15-minute neighborhoods. I can't wait to have 15-minute neighborhoods available all over the city because I want to live in one as soon as possible. I think I'll leave my comment there. I heartily endorse voting for it.
Well, I might suggest that it be worded differently, and that instead of focusing on the two projects, those two items in particular, that we rather make a recommendation to council that however they prioritize, we feel that it's most important, given the data that we've seen, that any of their prioritizations focus on that, filling that gap of the missing middle or middle income housing and the 15-minute neighborhood, because we know those are priorities for the city. So whatever they deem to be the highest priority that achieves those goals, offering them a lens rather than pointing to projects, because without knowing the financial implications, the demands on staff's time, and the ways in which staff gets pulled in different directions by city council and what the other boards have going on, I prefer to look at things through a lens and get direction that way. That's a personal preference. It's how I do it in business, in my work. So I tend to that.
Well, thank you. I would respectfully not agree with that perspective and think that it's valuable to be more specific. Housing is the big issue in Boulder, and just to say, hey, we support missing middle with 15-minute neighborhoods is, to me, too vague. And so I think there is value in us pointing to, helping them sort out the priorities. And I think I don't expect that the earth is going to move with this recommendation, but I've heard from council people that when we voted on things, they do pay attention to it. They notice. And I don't think just saying, you're nice people and you're going to continue to be nice people is really going to have a lot of influence compared to.
Well, Michael, that's not quite what I said. I said,
I know.
I appreciate, what the word, not putting words in my mouth. And instead, what I said was that we recommend that they use a lens of focusing on housing, particularly middle income housing, which we know there's a huge gap in, here, and this idea of the walkable neighborhood, the 15-minute neighborhood. We ask that they look at evaluate every project through that lens. That's very different from saying, hey, you're nice people. So
Yeah.
I want to be clear about what I'm articulating here, because we're recorded, and I don't want words put in my mouth. Thank you.
Okay, I understand that. It does feel to me like it would be, you know, a little bit of just giving them a platitude instead of specific direction. And I'm not putting that word in your mouth. I'm just saying that's how it feels to me. So, any other comments? We have two possible directions here. One is to, maybe there's more, but let me just say, I think there's two. One is to vote on this. Another is to say, let's send it back into the mill and revise it and take another look at it next month. John?
Yeah, thank you. Again, I can't resist throwing in my 2 bits worth here. I think it would be very useful if in this letter or associated with it somehow, the HAB indicated that what its priorities are in terms of all the entire universe of dealing with housing issues. Whether, for example, these 2 projects are the highest priority, and if so, why is that the case? Or are there other programs or options or projects that are also of the same priority that you think are equally important? But to give some background why you're focusing on these 2 projects, I think would be very useful in your letter, and it would add credibility and weight to your recommendation.
Sorry, I can't make it through a whole meeting without eating. I think that's a really good comment. Rather than just, you know, maybe it's a little bit too brisk the way it is, but who would like to add a thought on that?
Well, I think that's what I was suggesting is, I think, unless I misunderstood John, why are we requesting something like this? And it's because our priorities, our lens is, as we've discussed, and the data shows we have this gap in middle income housing right now in the city. We have a gap in product that people want, that desire this type of housing. And if that's our priority, and we think that these 2 projects most accomplish that, I agree with John that language adds credibility. But I think the why behind the recommendations is absolutely critical. I don't know that myself if those are the 2 highest priority items, because I don't have enough data. I would turn to folks at the city. I don't want to put Holly and others on the spot, because of course you guys just got here, but you're in there day to day looking at data, weighing the options of different programs and plans. And so that's my comment about John's comment.
Thank you. Well, I think if I were to were to expand on these thoughts, where I'd go with it would be to say, you need land to make missing middle happen. And this is very general. And, you know, so the planning reserve, kind of the arrow points in that direction. And then at TBAP 2, you've got the combination of kind of an interesting land ownership pattern and potentially motivated landowners who are willing to maybe help build a different future. And those are those are conceptual comments. I'm sure they could be beefed up with some data and more research, but we have discussed this at HAB meetings, and the conundrum of missing middle is like, where do you put it given the high land values, and where are the opportunities? And it seems like that's these two are where it's really been pointing. There are obviously other opportunity sites, but those seem to be both the biggest and the most accessible ones. Philip.
Yeah, I was going to say that I didn't necessarily interpret the letter as trying to indicate what we think are the two top priorities, because in previous discussions it was kind of about the fact that these two projects are kind of special in the sense that they have much longer lead times required, and so it's more about kicking that ball down the hill, getting that ball rolling, rather than so much saying that these are the two top priorities. And of course, there's nothing in here about exactly how much resources should go into it. Hiring a consultant. I mean, you could hire a whole team of consultants. You could start one study, whatever's first. I don't know. Anyways, I just wanted to point out that the notion that they were the two top priorities wasn't necessarily the main impetus of the letter, but I don't know, maybe that's how, Michael, you felt about it. But I also remember just this aspect of the long lead times, making it something that we wanted to get out there, saying we support, so that we could get started on it.
Would there be, thank you, Philip, would there be more comfort if we were actually less specific about these steps? And I see where you're coming from, Juliet, and it does look like we're making kind of budgetary recommendations in a very general way. Maybe we don't need to be as specific as saying you need to hire people to do this or that. Although realistically, that's what it's going to take. The question is, could it just be a call to action with more background without enumerating those particular steps?
I'm wondering if it would be beneficial to start with our like overarching goals of 15-minute neighborhood, missing middle, and then go into some of those more actionable items, the call to action stuff. So that in their minds, they know at the top of that this is what we're looking for. This is the lens we're coming from. Here's ways that you could take action with that. Those aren't necessarily like our top 2 out of your 10, but these are the things that we see as feasible to get to these places.
Good comment. Sensing some consensus building around this, which is a good thing. That's why we talk about it. I'd be happy to, again, draft another version of it and send it around for review and comment before the July meeting. I think all these comments are worth incorporating. I don't think we need to vote on that, but I'm happy to move forward in that direction. And also to continue the discussion if folks have other comments.
So I guess I do have a comment after all. What how to say this, it would be, I assume that when you send a draft, you want feedback on it as soon as possible. We can just email you directly back what our thoughts are about concerns and whether or not we're interested in voting for it. So that, it'd be a shame to come back in July. I mean, I don't want to spend the next 4 meetings crafting a recommendation letter that, like in the grand scheme of things, we shouldn't spend so much time on. I don't know. And so I guess I'll just say that I'll try to do better about reading it right away and giving you feedback before the next meeting.
Thank you. Well, I haven't gotten a lot of feedback from, in the form of emails, and I don't mind spending time during meetings and talking about it. I think it's a very productive use of our time. I also think spending a meeting or two to craft a good recommendation on an important issue is, not a problem. I mean, that's not dragging your feet. What I don't know, and Jay can help me, I hope, is how appropriate it is to have email dialogue on this as opposed to the meetings. In a sense, it's what the meetings are for. Is there any problem with, Philip and I having a back and forth on an issue like this, or Juliet and I, or anyone on the board?
I just wouldn't recommend the back and forth, but definitely a one way is fine. So if Philip has edits, please feel free to send them to you, Michael, and you can incorporate them and share them with the group, but I would avoid the back and forth emails.
Right.
It's more like a discussion that should really happen at hand.
Okay, good. And that's what we're doing. Great. All right. Let's say, please send me some additional comments. We'll get another draft out well before the next meeting. And if it seems like it's something we're ready to vote on, we'll vote on. And I hope we will. I really do think there's value in focusing on these two as priorities for some of the reasons we've hashed out today. One being the length of time it would take to get things going on these two sites. Another being they are, in my opinion, higher opportunity sites than some others in Boulder, if you're looking at that missing middle outcome. So if that sounds good, we could move on to item B under 6, review of accessory dwelling unit regulations with Jay, but I will give you an opportunity for further comment before we do that. Okay, Jay, I think you are on.
All right. I'm going to share a presentation that's it's a little old, but I think it will be extremely helpful. Ooh. So yeah, you're going to hear me talk for quite a bit. So if you please ask questions, interrupt me if something's not clear, if you have or you're curious about something. I think it'd just be a lot more interesting for me and you that way. So I have about 48 slides. Some will go very quickly. Some are a little bit more dense. So this is an adaptation from a June 5th, or no, I'm sorry. June 5th, 2018. This was the public hearing at council on the ADU update. So this was fairly lengthy process. So we basically, council in 2017 was looking at this. They identified it as one of their council priorities, just like they did in this past February. They provided feedback, planning board provided feedback. We did all sorts of public engagement where we basically launched the project. We had open hearings or open meetings. If you can see the picture, that's me getting grilled by a fairly friendly group of about probably 60 people up in North Boulder.
Jay, we don't see a picture of you. We see the not presentation mode, but the actual
Oh, thank you.
design mode.
See, how do I change that? No.
Let's see the way. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
let
think
me put it in presentation mode before I share.
that's right.
Now it's super slow. Sorry about that. Interesting. What is that? Ah, I think I got it. Or maybe not. Let me try it again. So you're still seeing the presentation mode? How about
We're
now?
seeing, oh, now we see presentation.
Looking good.
All right. Yeah, that's the challenge with not having my second screen. So yeah, here's the image of the meeting in North Boulder. So this was a fairly extensive process. So it was basically over 2 years of work, community engagement, lots of different iterations. And so I'm going to go through sort of what the final outcomes were, because I think it's helpful context to understand sort of where we've been and where we might be going. And also keep in mind, what council prioritized in terms of the ADU update is really specific to one topic, and that's saturation. So we haven't had the full internal conversation as to what this update is, the next update is going to look like, but it's not going to be this extensive for sure. So I just wanted to create some expectations going in. So even though we started in August, formally with the public process, August of 2017, it wasn't until February 1st, 2019, that the new regulations were implemented. So just talk a little bit about what is an accessory dwelling unit. I think everybody here knows that. Basically, in-law apartment, separate and complete housekeeping unit. So kitchen, sleeping area, and bathrooms. And it used to be that there were two different types. There was an ADU, and there was also this OAU, owner accessory unit. And they were, it got really confusing in terms of what they are. And one of the great outcomes, I believe, was really simplifying it to be clear that we're just talking about attached and detached ADUs. We got rid of the whole term owner accessory unit. So I won't go into a lot of detail because it's really quite murky as to the distinction between the two. But here it is basically, an ADU was always attached. It would either be in the basement or say on the 3rd floor, but it could also be on the 1st floor or 2nd floor. An OAU could also either be detached or attached, but they were also limited in terms of which zones they were allowed in. So again, very confusing, lots of complexity. But what we learned about the existing ADUs prior to 2018 is that over half of them were in people's basements. Some of them on the 1st floor, a few on the 1st or over the garage, but not that many in a completely separate building or on the 2nd floor. And just to give you a sense, the detached OEUs, a lot of them are sort of close in neighborhoods with alley access. And you really couldn't see them from the street. They're fairly well disguised, even the detached ones. I like to show this photo too. Basically, like no one would know that there was an ADU. So the entrance is around the side, it's obscured, and that's intentional. It's not supposed to detract from the single family character of the neighborhood. So a little bit of history, fascinating stuff. So, the first ordinance allowing ADUs was in 1983. Prior to that, you could not build an ADU in a single family home. So it was sort of the early adoption was, it was very cautious. So very restrictive. Boulder liked to consider it was a privilege to be able to have an accessory dwelling unit. It wasn't anything that was by right, and real concern about potential impacts to the neighborhood that, is intentionally very restrictive. But as those attitudes changed over time, the ordinance was amended, 1980s, 1997, 99. It always came up as one of the tools to help us address our affordable housing challenges. So in 99 and again in 2014, it's in our toolkit. There was work done in 2012, sort of a national survey, also a survey of owners. I'll share a little bit of that. There was polling done as part of the comp plan update in 2016, which showed those shifting attitudes. So 62% supported allowing accessory units in some single family neighborhoods, but they weren't getting built. So as of May 2018, there were 231 legal accessory units. More illegal ones, but really very small percentage, half of 1% of the entire housing stock. So there seemed to be fairly robust agreement that we should work on this issue and try to encourage more of them. This is where they were in 2018, and I would guess if we updated this, it would look very similar, just more dots in those same areas. That survey had a great response rate. But really the reason a lot of people created these was for that supplemental income, right? To help them to be able to stay in Boulder, to be able to afford to live in Boulder, escalating housing costs here. And we also asked sort of what's the average rent of the tenants. And I have more slides on this, but basically it shows that the vast majority are people of modest means, and so it's those rentals are definitely serving the market that has intended. Again, interrupt me. If this is really boring, you guys tell me.
Quick interruption.
Yes, please.
Your sound quality keeps. I think there's something about the position of your microphone that it keeps cutting in and out. So sometimes it's full volume, and sometimes it's kind of like it's off in the distance. So I don't know if there's a way to adjust that or not. But
I'll just try to speak louder. How's that?
That's great.
I'm not sure what else I can do. Sorry.
I'll just say, just one comment. 231 legal units. That's a surprising statistic.
Oh yeah.
Very, very small number.
I'll the punchline to that is that in 2 years after 2019, when the new regulations went in place, we doubled that number. So we produced more in 2 years than we did in 30 some years of having the regulations in place. So we did quite a bit of comparisons of rents. There was definitely, I think city council at the time, and probably still, while they recognized that ADUs were affordable, there was a lot of concern that they might not be in the future. So we'll talk about these affordable ADUs that they created. But it does just, again, shows you how affordable the typical renters were back in the day. And I would guess that is still remains consistent today. So again, just more of the rents, but basically, I think the important takeaway was that 88% of ADUs are affordable to people earning 75% of AMI and below. So to me, that was a really startling statistic. And just how they're used, that was super helpful. So that survey told us, this base average occupancy of 1.5 people. The vast majority were long-term renters, 64%. Some short-term renters were, they would build the ADU for short-term rentals, or that's just the way it worked out. Housing for visitors, relatives, and not that many people actually living in the EDU and renting out the main house. I thought it would be more. And then even fewer offering a place of offering rent free in exchange for services. This was another option as well. So back in 2018, several council members were really into why statements and purpose statements. Probably still are, but trying to be super clear what it is we're trying to accomplish with this. And there was a lot of discussion, community discussion, just wordsmithing this statement, but it really is what guided the work. And then also the purpose statement, and really emphasizing that we were talking about incremental changes, simplifying the regulations and removing barriers, and really trying to be clear that we're trying to be compatible with the neighborhoods. And then trying to achieve the following, that additional flexibility like I talked about, and also to increase workforce and long-term rental housing opportunities. So what we did not do was amend the building code or zoning code requirements. We actually did end up, council ended up modifying the occupancy limits, but the owner occupancy requirements, those also remain the same, but we were clear that those weren't really on the table since we were talking about incremental changes. And then just some basic evaluation criteria that helped us in terms of exploring the different alternatives. And then these were the 12 topics that were discussed in detail throughout the process. So I'll go through each one of these and they're ranked. So starting with what we learned from our work, what was the biggest barrier, parking, of course, and then saturation, then legal non-conforming structures. So trying to really start with the really difficult ones. And, we got through quite a few things, but some things council wasn't quite ready to take action on. So for instance, parking. So our recommendation was to remove the parking requirement. We provided the rationale, showed what the car ownership was, tried to emphasize that occupancy limits hadn't changed. So we're not talking about a lot of additional people, and the type of structure doesn't always dictate car ownership, right? So you could have a family with 4 teenage drivers, and very different car ownership than say an older couple. So despite all those arguments, that was again #1 concern that we heard from the neighbors too, was about that lack or loss of parking in the public right of way. And then this is basically what got adopted. So council was willing to not require the additional parking if the owner was willing to create an affordable ADU. So basically they would limit the rent to 75% AMI. They also put in an exception for property that's landmarked or as a contributing structure in the historic district. But they did loosen it a little bit for all properties. So they do allow parking now in the front setback, and they removed the requirement for paved parking. So again, not the full removal of that parking requirement, but they did make some concessions, but they wanted something in return, in particular encouraging these affordable ADUs. So saturation, and as I mentioned, saturation is definitely the focus of this next update. So at that time, 10% of the homes within 300 feet may not have an ADU. You know, and really clearly it was to prevent that overabundance of non-single family units in single family homes. And, you know, in the spirit of being incremental, we suggested changing that from 10 to 20%. And council basically did do that citywide and even increased it to 30%. Again, if the property is landmarked or contributing structure in a historic district. But there was also discussion about whether or not co-ops should be included in calculating the saturation rate. They decided that they should be. And they also, a little surprisingly to me, they limited to where saturation calculations happen. And I'll show you a chart later. So it's really specific to the RL zones. So not every zone has a saturation limit anymore.
Jay, quick question. Would
Yeah.
a co-op count as like as many? Like, would that count as several ADUs, or would that count as like a house with an ADU?
It's just, it'd be one. So,
Okay, I didn't know if it counted for like 3 or 4 because there's a lot of people. Okay,
yeah, no, that gets super complicated. Luckily, they
Yeah.
do not do that.
okay.
I apologize. I have to leave because I've got another board meeting tonight that I've got to attend to. Thank you. This is super interesting, Jay, and I'll watch the meeting afterwards when it's posted.
Yeah, give me a call anytime if you have any questions.
Yeah. And I assume we can get a copy of this presentation as well, Jay?
Yes, it'll be in the packet materials online. Tiffany will post it.
Okay, good night, Julia. And thank you.
So we did some analysis to try to help with council to understand the saturation issue. So this just gives you a sense of the number of parcels in each zoning district. And obviously RL1 is sort of the big zoning district in Boulder, particularly when it comes to ADUs. And then we, you know, basically with the rules, we looked at which ones are not eligible, just to get a sense of, you know, how many units could possibly build an ADU. So, but recognizing not everybody wants an ADU, right? So you basically have to have the desire, the wherewithal. And then here's the existing. So that shows you the 1/2 of 1%. And it shows that, you know, really only 1.9% of the housing of the currently, or the old rules, were eligible to even have one. So what if we said, well, 5% get built? So just to try to give some numbers to council to help with their decision making and understand, because that's a question we often got was, well, if we loosen these regulations, how many might we get? And it's just a really difficult question to answer.
5% is saturation.
No, that's basically if you were to assume 5% as opposed to the 1.9%, which is the current. So if we were to more than double production, like we have now, so that
I see. Yeah, just straight up 5% of the parcels.
Exactly. So yeah, does that make sense?
Well, a question. So could you achieve 5% given the current standards for saturation?
Well, so we increased it to 20%. The challenge with the saturation is it's so specific to each parcel that you can't even do an analysis because it's parcel specific. Each parcel in the city would have a different saturation. Because you're basically taking a property and then drawing a circumference or a radius of 200 feet all the way around. Every property that touches that has to get calculated. And it's frustrating for property owners too, because, you know, they come in and say, can we build an ADU? And the person at the counter can't tell them because they have to go back and do this, you know, lengthy analysis. So that's just one of the many challenges of the saturation. So there are lots of different options, you know, increasing it, getting rid of it entirely. So but we'll talk about that probably more in the next part of the discussion in next month or the following month. So just moving on, just to give the council also and planning board. So by the way, John Gerstle was on planning board when this went through. Planning board also made a recommendation to council, and you can see a lot of their influence in the overall proposal. But I just wanted to acknowledge that. So here's that current saturation rate that we were talking about. Here is the 5%, what it would look like in sort of a standard South Boulder neighborhood. This is what 10% would look like. And here's 20%. So just trying to give people a sense of, you know, what do these numbers actually mean? Anything else about saturation before I move on?
Yes, do you think there's any appetite for just doing away with saturation standards, or is this going to have to be an incremental change?
I think potentially. I mean, it's a little difficult to predict. I mean, that would be the simplest, quickest way to do it.
Right. I mean, a lot of states there by right, DC being the most famous example, I think.
Oh yeah, no.
Everybody can have, yeah, I figured you did, but.
I think Boulder is unique with this saturation limit. I was hard pressed to find any other community with anything even close to resembling this.
Very interesting. Thank you.
So non-conforming structures. So these are basically, you know, duplexes, triplexes that were permitted a long time ago and mostly on the hill. The regulations were changed after they were built, so they're legal, but they're non-conforming to the current zoning. This is the best way to explain it. And part of the reason for including non-conforming structures in this is to prevent that overabundance of non-single family units, predominantly in single family neighborhoods. And really we recommended to remove it. And the large reason, or the basic reason why, is that these units have been, or these homes have been there for 50, sometimes 100 years. They're already part of the character of the neighborhood. But I think there was a lot of pushback, particularly at University as well as Mapleton, that there was just, you know, concern about ADUs and further deterioration of the single family fabric, I guess. So council basically didn't accept that change. So there's no change on that one either. This one is basically talks about OEUs. So remember,
Can I interrupt real quick? I don't know if this is backing up too much, but can you explain the process for determining if your house is eligible for an ADU? Like, do you submit a form to the city and someone has to do a study? Do you pay a fee for that study? Like, what's the procedure?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, so typically someone who wants to build an ADU will go into planning and development services, contact them online these days, and they'll work with a specialist, and the specialist will look up their property, and they'll check pretty much everything else. Are you in the right zone? Are you allowed to have an ADU? Do you have, you know, the minimum lot size, all the other stuff. And then they'll say, or if there's a waiting list as well. And then they'll say, we need to get back to you in terms of to figure out the saturation. It'll take, you know, a couple days probably. They'll go in and do the analysis. We did figure out a GIS tool to make it quicker, but you still have to, it identifies the circle easily quickly, but it still requires us to look at each property because of non-conforming status. But there's no charge for that. Basically, it's just exploratory. So we wouldn't accept an application for the land use review until we were fairly confident that they could meet the requirements. And I have a slide with the total fees later, but think it might have gone up, but it was $450 basically for the land use review, which is pretty reasonable. And we'll talk about this more later. So I think Boulder on that front has done a decent job, but it's not something that your average homeowner can just show up and with, a back of the napkin drawing.
Yeah, I mean,
Our
one of the
code
things.
is- yeah.
One of the things that strikes me as being really unfair about this is if you're considering purchasing a property and you'd like to build an ADU and that's part of your calculation, you have to sort of jump through this hoop first, if that's even allowed for a property you don't own. And then, whatever delay that might incur, properties sell pretty quickly around here. So I don't know, it just seems like if you're trying to have an ADU policy that encourages building ADUs, like you would think that you'd want people to be able to buy a property with some assurance they could actually build one, but it seems like that's missing.
Well, we'll talk about it in a few more slides, but
Okay.
I think we made a lot of progress towards getting better.
I got a question, Jay.
Sure.
So I think everyone knows we have an ADU, and when we made that step of walking into planning services and then seeing if we were eligible, it was like very easy. Someone looked at a map and said, you can do an ADU within your home, which is we were converting a rec room. So I'm not quite understanding why it's so, what the difficulty is in ascertaining for the homeowner whether they can do an ADU or not. Can you just explain that a little more?
Yeah, and Michael, your situation in Newlands is different than, say, University Hill.
Right.
A lot of it does have to do with these non-conforming structures. So it's difficult for it. Yeah, and they probably shouldn't have given you an answer. But it's possible that the saturation level was so low that they felt pretty confident with the number. But once it gets close to the 20%, there is a lot more research that has to be done for each of those units.
It's more than looking at a map.
Exactly.
Summary. Okay, thank you.
And if I could pipe in, sorry guys, this is Danny. I'm not video appearing, but I think going back to that notion of the certitude, I think Jay, that's part of the rationale for, like you were just saying, for getting rid of this whole absorption rate, because that's the part where it gets really uncertain or indefinite for any homeowner in terms of being able to figure out pretty quickly what they need to do, right?
Yeah, that's part of it. But there's more.
Okay.
We're just getting to it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, so we talked about non-conforming structures, the allowed zones. So it was a fascinating, OAUs were not subject to the saturation rule. So it's just again, more complexity, which I think highlights this issue for a homeowner is trying to understand whether or not they can and cannot build one. So basically, there was a lot of discussion about what should be allowed where and which zones. And there was this great, I think we ended up in a good place. So we show the existing, the proposed is what actually got adopted. So we allow ADUs and detached ADUs in all the zones. We added RMX 1 and 2, as well as agriculture and also public zones. And then clarified that the saturation limit only applies in RL zones. So again, much more straightforward than it used to be. And then we also renamed everything, like I mentioned earlier. So everything that's attached is not attached ADU. Everything that's detached is detached. They're different rules, super clear, super obvious. But that, to me, that was like my crowning achievement. There was also a lot of discussion about interior sizes of both attached and detached. So it was fairly complicated. The idea was to ensure that the accessory unit is smaller in size and subordinate to the main home. So for an ADU or those interior, it had to be less than 1,000 square feet or a third of the principal dwelling unit. And this created a lot of issues for people because basically if you're on a split level ranch with a walkout basement and wanted to create an ADU in your basement, you would have to wall off portions of your basement or not allow the ADU to have access to certain parts of the basement to stay under that 1,000 square foot cap. So again, trying to provide more flexibility, we recommended changing it from 1/3 to 1/2. Council basically said, well, yeah, we'll do that, but you have to create an affordable ADU. So does give more flexibility, but in exchange, council got something in return. But for those market rate attached ADUs, there was no change. They still have to meet the previous regulations.
Can I
Size? Go
ask
ahead.
a really
Yeah.
basic question? So if you have a 3,000 square foot house, you could have a 1,500 square foot ADU.
No, it's whichever is smaller,
Oh, sorry.
whichever is less. So yeah, you can never do more than 1,000.
All right. So if it's 2,000 square feet, I was focusing on the wrong thing. If it's 2,000 square feet, it can be the ADU can be 1,000 square feet. So 1/2 the size.
Well, no, it has to be a third. Well, it depends if it's affordable or not, or market.
Oh,
So
I see.
it can be
Okay.
1,000.
I clearly was spacing out when you brought
That's
up
fine.
the pink box.
Yeah, but
Okay.
the market rate one, the maximum size would be 600, right? Right. Lot sizes. So again, a lot of this was originally intended thinking that smaller lots might not be appropriate for an additional accessory unit. But we did recommend lowering it to 5,000, from 6,000 to 5,000 square feet. And that would basically helped about 475 lots. So council did do that. They lowered it from 6 to 5. Detached size. So currently the old regs were 450, which can be challenging, particularly with a 2-car garage. But there was a lot of concern, your typical detached garage is typically up on a second floor, and it has the potential for more impacts, right? In terms of noise and privacy, solar access in your neighbors. We had recommended increasing that size limit to 800 square feet, similar to what most other jurisdictions do across the country. And I think that the size limit was also related to concern about compatible development. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, but once the ADU regulations were adopted prior to the compatible development standards. And the compatible development standards were adopted citywide to ensure that infill development didn't significantly negatively impact their neighbors. So solar access, setbacks, and things like that. So we basically, that was our recommendation. Council said, yeah, we'll do 800 square feet if it's affordable. And they will increase, but they did agree to increase the size limit for the detached market rate from 450 to 550 to provide that sort of extra flexibility. And they removed the 1/3 percentage limitation. It just doesn't really make as much sense with a detached structure. They were very generous with a landmarked or a contributing structure and allowed up to 1,000 square foot. And that was really in consideration of trying to encourage older homes to preserve, if there's a carriage house or something that would be larger. So 1,000 square foot was is allowed for those situations. Right, and design, as I was just talking about the compatible development standards. So there were lots of design standards in the accessory dwelling unit regulations. And it was super complicated for homeowners to try to meet, and it didn't always match what was in the primary residence. So what we had recommended was to get rid of all those and rely purely on the compatible development standards. And I think that's worked fairly well. So council did adopt that. Yep. And this one, you know, Philip, you were talking about a homeowner trying to understand whether or not they could build an ADU. It used to be a home had to be 5 years old to create an ADU. So again, it was this privilege concept. It was a privilege to have an accessory dwelling unit. And it was for existing homeowners to remain in their homes, not for new homeowners. So, but what we found was that a lot of people would build the house with the ADU and then just wait the 5 years to go through the permitting process. So council agreed and removed that. There was also a permit system. So it used to be, prior to 2019, you could not renew your permit to have an accessory dwelling unit if someone was on that waiting list because of the saturation rule. So basically, if someone reached the saturation limit in your neighborhood, or if the neighborhood reached it, you would be put on a waiting list. And then when you went to sell your house, if you had a neighbor who was on that waiting list, you would have to remove your ADU. You'd have to remove the kitchen and remove the separation, and to allow for that person on the waiting list to build their accessory dwelling unit. So I think council saw that, you know, there had been a significant shift in attitudes towards accessory dwelling units. So that permit system was removed entirely. And then now we rely on the existing rental licensing program to make sure that homes that are rented are up to standards. So yeah, we removed the system, but we still require a declaration of use. So that's basically, it's not quite a covenant, but it is recorded with the deed on the property, and it has specific language about the affordable ADU, what those rent restrictions are, as well as penalties for not renting at or below those limits. And it's fascinating. I mean, council came up with this system on the fly, basically saying that leaving enforcement up to the renter. So if a renter finds out that they're being charged rent in an affordable ADU that's above 75% AMI, they can complain to the city will go after them. And not only does that owner have to pay the renter all the overcharged rent, but they also have to pay interest on that money and pay the city a fine. We're getting close, I promise. So short-term rentals. So they used to be allowed in accessory dwelling units or the principal dwelling unit. And, you know, that was basically a citywide. And a lot of the feedback that we got was, you know, and this was sort of just as Airbnb and the others were really taking off. So what we heard from the community was a strong desire to prohibit short-term rentals entirely in accessory dwelling units. Council agreed with that. We thought that maybe, you know, because we had an owner occupancy requirement, that the owner would ensure that their renters would behave responsibly. But there wasn't a lot of faith in that, I guess. And it was also contrary to the project purpose, which was to try to increase workforce and long-term rental housing opportunities. So a lot of the people who had short-term rental licenses, they could rent for, basically the way it was set up is they could continue until a certain date. I believe it was close to 5 years, or until the time if they didn't renew their rental license, or they sold the property. Oh, and there they are. Yep, as of 2019. Yep, they have to forfeit. Oh, and if they wanted to create an ADU, if they had a short-term rental license for the principal dwelling, they'd have to give that up in order to get their permit. And then occupancy, this was really fascinating as well. So the idea with ADUs, initially was that we didn't increase the number of people allowed to live on a property by simply creating the accessory dwelling unit. But council was very concerned that the way that our current occupancy rules are written, that it would not allow two households with dependents to live on the same property. Because the way that our current rules are 3 or 4 unrelated people. So you would have sort of your household, right? And every person in the ADU would count as an unrelated person. So if you had, a couple or, single parent with 2 kids, that's 3 unrelated people already right there. And it also, what did we do? There was also rumors were prohibited. And so basically the change was to not include the owners or the renters dependents in the occupancy count. So that was the solution that council came up with. Lots of other minor code amendments. We deleted a lot of code, lots of sort of minor stuff that I won't talk about. We provided some explanations showing what a typical accessory unit would look like and how the compatible development standards work. So these are basically the different pieces of the compatible development standards that were adopted in 2010. So basically you can't have too much bulk in the side yard. You have to have articulation, maximum building coverages, and then also floor area ratio requirements, as well as the solar access pieces also apply. So those are the 12 options. Trying to think what else I have. There were just, comparative work that we did, what Santa Cruz is looking at in terms of providing more affordability. Portland talking about sort of the number of units that were created on an annual basis, based after certain fees or regulations were changed. And it's just fascinating to watch. It's really the cost, the SDC waivers, which Boulder does not have, because you can hook up to the existing water and utilities for each house. So it doesn't create additional expense. But when Portland waived those fees, the number of applications grew dramatically. And then short-term rentals were allowed and almost doubled. And then again, with the relaxed design and setback standards. So, some jurisdictions are going even further. And it's a, conscious policy choice that they made in their part. What else? Just shows all the non-conforming properties. These are the fees I was talking about. But all the fees for building electrical and the application fee, all to me quite reasonable compared to other jurisdictions. And then just some stats on sort of the median average lot size, ADUs, OUs, and that's it. So happy to chat some more. Hopefully that was interesting. I think it's fascinating.
Thank you, Jay. That's incredibly interesting. It's a disappointingly low number of ADUs, all told, which is not the fault of anybody on this call, but love to hear from everybody on the board. But my first thought is, where the council has already considered a number of recommendations on this and made some changes. We could maybe talk about where it would be most useful for us to advise. Like there's a pretty long list of 12 things at least, and we could maybe devise more of our own. It seems like the potential to increase the supply of ADUs is really, really large.
Sorry, I couldn't raise my hand. One thing I'd say is while the number is low, I think it was really encouraging that just in the past few years, we were able to have such a significant increase in percentage with the ADUs once the regulations were changed. And I think that's a really positive harbinger for things to come. And I think it really warrants continuing to explore what other sorts of regulatory catalysts, we might be able to implement to really keep that trend going. And that's one of the things Jay said that really I took away from just the number that we've been able to experience over the last couple of years compared to the first 30 years. I think that's something for us all to really keep in mind as we're moving forward on this, because I think it's very encouraging.
Thank you for putting a more positive spin in my statement. I agree with that.
So you said
I got to
that
bounce you off, Michael.
you said that the number of ADUs doubled in 2 years, and I thought you were going to end up. Did you show a slide that had that number on it? No.
No, I haven't pulled the numbers recently. So, one of the things that was supposed to happen 2 years after the ADU update was adopted was we were supposed to do an evaluation, right? Well, how well did the regulations do? How many units did we get? What are the continuing pressure points? We haven't done that. And it's not clear to me that that's what council wants. So what we're trying to do is, and there'll be a study session with council in September. And basically it'll be Christopher's team as well as the code development team that's run by Charles Farrow. They will be the ones discussing with council what is the scope of this change to ADUs. And so far they've said it's saturation is what they want to focus on. But for me, I would like to present sort of the update. How many units have we gotten? I'd love to put out a poll or a survey to all the people that applied since 2019 to understand, okay, well, how difficult was it? What pressure points are you still experiencing? Understand who started the process and who didn't finish it. But again, it's that's the big question, right? Is how big of a update is this going to be, and what's council's appetite? Because the more they want to do, the bigger policy questions they want to address, the more community engagement that needs to happen.
And to be clear, the September study session is just about ADUs, and the October study session that we've referenced several times is more generally about missing middle housing. Is that right?
Close. So the ADU update is lumped in with other council priorities around, smaller, more affordable homes, other code changes to encourage smaller, more affordable units. So again, it's not very well defined. So part of the purpose of that study session will be to get clear direction from council. What is the scope for those? But yeah, they are separate. So ADUs is going, Christopher and Charles's group. The middle income piece will be through Housing and Human Services. So Holly, myself, and Michelle Allen talking about middle income, the pilot, and also middle income, trying to encourage more middle income with revisions to our inclusionary housing program.
My screen froze for a moment and
I'm sorry.
my screen froze for a moment. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great. It looks like it's okay now.
I think it glitched on the front end of your question, and so I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, yeah, I was asking about my screen.
Yeah. Okay.
My next question is, it's a sort of a question. It sounds like it would behoove us to wait what comes out of that council session on ADUs and smaller units before we, leap forward and made a recommendation on ADUs. Question mark. Danny, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I think I lost you there for a second, Mike. Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
did you hear the question, Danny?
Could you repeat it?
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
just
sure.
wonder if you think we should wait for the council to have a study session about ADUs and smaller units before we leap forward and make some kind of recommendation about ADUs.
I think it would make sense just because I think that maybe within the scope of that conversation, we can get some insight into, kind of as Jay was alluding to, whether they're looking for, more broad perspective changes or adjustments to ADUs or more specific ones. So maybe that there's some kind of direction in terms of how we should go about that.
You broke up toward the end there, Danny.
Can I make a comment that might be a question, or are we gonna?
Sure.
So one of the that whole slideshow was kind of where ADUs were before 2018 and what actually happened, what the current state of ADU policy is now. Every slide had kind of a nice theme of like, here's the problem that the current ADU system, that the 2017 ADU system had. Here's the recommendations that we made, and then here's what city council actually did, right? So like there's almost always a gap. There's often a gap between the recommendation and what city council did. Is that I mean, you kind of highlighted that in a number of places. And I just wonder if that represents kind of an opportunity. I mean, like a lot of work and study went into making those recommendations. And I almost wonder if like one possible road for city council is just to like get the same presentation we just had and say, here's the gap between what you could have done and what we recommended. And here's why we would ask you to reconsider what you did. Or is that, do you actually think that you have a new set of recommendations that you would make given what you know now?
Yeah, that's a great question, Philip. I mean, I wouldn't characterize it that there was always a gap, because in some cases they went farther than what the staff recommendation was, which, so they basically made it their own, would be a way to describe it. But yeah, I mean, theoretically, if they felt that the community engagement was, robust enough, and, at the time they just weren't quite sure what all those changes would mean. And if they but I think they would have to understand sort of what the impact was. So I think they would want to know what that evaluation tells us about how the regulations have changed the landscape. And that's the question. I'm not sure. Do they want us to do that or not? I don't know. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I think I was trying to imagine if there's like a path of least resistance to get bigger, more change in this area. But it made me think of another question as you were talking, and that is, so I learned a lot in this meeting, in that presentation. So thank you for the information. I had the notion that people who are really pro more housing and pro ADUs, and I'm conflating this now with the co-op ordinance changes. So I know that people who are in support of co-ops are often frustrated with the latest set of revisions that it maybe actually constrained people's ability to form co-ops and have them. And I kind of thought people that make that complaint also complain about the ADU restrictions. And so I kind of expected to hear that, well, not much had changed on with respect to building ADUs. It seems like it's been maybe not like, a city makeover, but doubling is no small thing. If we actually have, over 400, nearly 500 ADUs now. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just it's kind of a rambling comment. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, that was something I was going to raise. I mean, so I showed the picture of me presenting to a group of 60 people. Did that a couple times, and there were definitely some fierce critics in the audience and in the community. But what astonished me was that it was their neighbors that would respond and push back. So it wasn't staff always defending this. There is definitely, I think the attitude towards ADUs has changed dramatically. And the people that were pushing it are homeowners living in single family neighborhoods throughout Boulder. And they wanted this opportunity and they made their voice heard. And I think that's why council went farther in some respects of what the staff recommendation was, is because they showed up.
And so, okay, so I'm probably just getting oriented to something you said earlier, but I guess we don't know exactly at this point what city council's appetite is for expanding ability for people to build ADUs. But I mean, I guess just for my part, I love ADUs. I'd like to see lots more of them. I would love to see a higher saturation limit or no saturation limit. And so I'll just put that out there that I'm happy to help endorse whatever liberalization that we want to consider as my general comment.
Thank you, Philip. I think you and I at least are on the same page on that, possibly others, but back to my earlier comment, I want to be sure that when AB makes recommendations, they're cogent and trenchant and effective and listened to. So I would love to hear exactly strategically where we should not intervene, but make a recommendation. It really goes back to our earlier conversation about the letter. We don't want to be generic and just say we endorse the platitude of more housing. We want to be strategic and specific as much as possible. In some cases, I think we can do that without getting into policy wonk land and really just helping them sort out the priorities and urging them to act, because they're the ones who are going to have to sort it out with public participation, for example, and the debate in council and what does legislation actually look like and so forth. So that's kind of where I've come to after however many months on HAB, is kind of gets back to what we talked about at our retreat last year. How can we be effective? And it seems to me that's the direction we should be going. Rather than just issue a ringing endorsement of let's have ADUs everywhere, let's help them figure out how to do it in short.
Well, maybe we could give them political cover by giving them, giving a recommendation that's way past where they're willing to go.
Absolutely. And I'm not being critical of anything you said. I'm totally on board with you on that. So what else we got about ADUs? Anybody here live in an ADU?
I think I technically do. It's a It's all a rental property, but I'm in the basement unit. So that would make it an ADU, right?
Does it have a separate entrance and your own kitchen and bath? Oh, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, but it's just not the owner that lives upstairs. So it was
That's probably not an ADU. Sorry.
okay.
And there's more than two units in the whole building?
There just two.
Oh, just two? Oh,
Mhm.
Maybe this ain't you.
but they're both rented, so they could be a non-conforming.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I was curious about.
Could be illegal.
That too.
I know, yeah.
We won't say anything.
I don't want
Recorded.
to parse this issue too much, but I wonder if there's been any analysis of shortage of housing for students and more students kind of joining the flood of commuters, choosing to live in Superior, Broomfield, Westminster. I'm hearing this from friends who have undergraduate kids and they can't find housing in Boulder, but that's strictly anecdotal. And I have no idea how we would tackle that issue, but I guess the professors are already left of the students next. Is an interesting question to ponder.
Yeah, I would love to see data on that if somebody
Yeah.
were to.
Well, since you're a student, do you hear that among your colleagues?
I don't really know anybody. Like I've known people struggling to find housing here, and they've been like, okay, well, I'll just like commute from my parents' place in in Denver. I don't really know a ton of people who've had to go outside of Boulder city limits, but I know that it occurs for sure.
Yeah. Maybe just something to be aware of and think about and keep an eye on for the future.
Yeah, definitely among people who aren't supported financially by their parents, I would assume.
Can I ask a follow-up question that's not really related to ADUs?
Yes, you may.
Do we know if college housing is always at max capacity, like Kittredge and Willville, are those always full? Yeah.
Or for that matter, the privately built student housing.
Yeah, across 28th.
Well, number of places.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
vacancy rates are extremely low for everything.
Okay.
Plenty of people. Yeah, my daughter's going through the same thing. She can still find housing, but it's really expensive because she didn't sign a lease,
She's going to commute from
9 months ago. No, I'm not encouraging that.
Yeah.
I want her to have that experience.
I have a question about ADUs now. So I think one of the implicit things, maybe it was explicit in some of the early slides, is that ADUs are understood to be for rental. That there's an owner and then they rent out an ADU to a third party. Are there any ADUs that have a different ownership model than that, where like the resident of the ADU owns their ADU? Is that possible?
Condominium model.
Yeah.
Are you talking about a condominium model or just an owner choosing to live in the ADU versus the main primary residence?
Oh, I guess I was thinking probably a condominium model then.
Yeah, then it's not an ADU. So it has to be a single ownership to be considered an ADU. And basically subdividing or creating a condominium that would be significant change to the zoning. So keep in mind, these are, typically single family homes in single family neighborhoods.
Right. So
Yeah,
creating a legal ADU does not violate single family zoning, but selling off your ADU that's what you're saying. It's interesting thought, though.
Well, I'm always looking for ways where we can expand ownership opportunities for affordable housing. It would be maybe this is too naive and too wishful thinking, but I think it would be super cool if there was a path towards or an ownership model that allowed for people to own an ADU, especially like, I mean, in my mind, like a detached one would be really something cool. Anyways, I can tell John probably has an opinion.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the issue that came up when these ADU regulations were revised previously, and I think it was very clear that it would remain single ownership for lots, and I think subdividing lots, which is what that implies, would be a major development that would cause a lot of consternation in town and in the planning office. But so I don't think that has been clearly addressed, other than say that it is not allowed under the present rules, and it was never proposed.
All right, so John, what's your hot take? Is consternation is one thing, but is it a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, I think it's legitimate to ask the question and to look at it. I think that there would be a lot of resistance to it, but that's not the same as saying that it's a good or bad idea. But I think that implies a major change to the whole concept of ADUs then.
And I'm going to generalize a little bit here, but if you want to read up more on this, Philip, cities like Minneapolis have they really more than tweaked their single family zoning to allow duplexes and triplexes on lots. And that seems like more of a trend, and maybe a useful one. I mean, it's also been done in the East Colfax in Denver, for example. Some of the same ideas in mind: create affordable housing, allow owners to stay in place with an income stream rather than having to move because their property taxes get too high or they retire, whatever reason. It seems like a lot of cities are looking at that, in Minneapolis and a few others have led the way.
I think I'd just say too, well, it's certainly a notion that has some merit and certainly can help address a lot of issues. I think by very definition, talking about, turning it into duplex or triplex zoning or anything of that nature is the opposite of an ADU, which is accessory by its, very definition. And so what we've been talking about there is kind of changing around the zoning to allow for more density rather than have an accessory dwelling unit, which is tied into the main density or the main parcel. So I think it's something that certainly as pressures increase merits discussion, and density is a great tool to catalyze local housing programs. But I think it's completely different than an ADU. So I just want to stress that. I think that those are, two completely different issues.
I would just add, Boulder has experimented with that concept, Philip. So it was called a house behind a house. So there are quite a few, they look like ADUs, mostly in Whittier and Goss Grove. So a lot of them have alley access, and the city for a while was allowing, divorced couples to basically split the property, build an ADU in the backyard and divide it. So it didn't last very long. It created all sorts of other issues, but that model has actually been tried in Boulder. I don't know, maybe John knows more of the history, but that was way before my time.
Yeah, I did a bit of door knocking in Goss Grove once, and I was amazed by how many properties aren't street facing on any street. They may have access to an alley, but so that must be a result of that house behind a house program.
Yeah, Whittier as well is a famous example.
Yeah.
But, when I think of our ADU experience, and we've had, I think, 4 tenants in 5 years, it's really designed for a young person out of school, or first job, maybe they're still in grad school and working part-time. They're not looking for a home ownership opportunity. They're looking for a place to live in Boulder until they move on to the next thing. We've had several single people who've moved on to getting married, for example. So we're very happy with that. And all those folks who have fallen within that demographic that Jay described of, making well under 80, sometimes under 40,000 a year. And, that's who that ADU program is really aimed at. Not to say that your idea is not worth examining, but I do think that ADUs have that niche and can serve that purpose very well. Okay, anybody have any other comments on ADUs?
So you said that we don't know what city council's interest is in relaxing the saturation limit, or do we have some sense that I think we have some sense that some city council people would like to increase the saturation limit. Do we know?
Yeah, saturation is the focus of the
Yeah. Okay, that's what
priority.
yeah, that's what you said.
But
What
it
about
is, don't know.
yeah? What about so saturation limit was 2 on the list of problems, and those were ordered by priority, I think you said. And parking was above that. Do we have any sense of like city council wants to revisit the issue around parking? Or is that kind of not something that's on people's radar? And is parking still a major impediment right now?
I haven't heard that. So basically, I mean, again, council, they said, yeah, we'll relax the standards. We want something in return, and that's an affordable ADU, right? So if you can't provide the parking, you always have to create an affordable ADU. And the rents are fairly competitive with the market at 75% AMI. So unless you're building a super high end, spending $600 a square foot, you probably can make it work, the financing.
I think it'd be useful to define that affordable ADU. Like, what does that mean? Does anybody use it? And what is there really more potential for that? I assume it means voluntarily agreeing to limit your rent based on AMI standards.
It's not voluntary, it's mandatory. So
no, but it's mandatory if you want to do it. Like we don't do it.
Yeah,
we do it.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, the numbers I saw, over half, I believe, being created in the past several years were affordable. Because really? And that says that they were not able to get around the parking and the other issues. And so they went the affordable route, and they saw the table. And again, it was, council was trying to look ahead, right? And say, okay, ADUs are affordable now, but we want to make sure they remain affordable into the future.
So if I had entered the affordable ADU program, I would be agreeing to limit my rent, the amount I charge and the amount of increasing for forever, or?
Yep, forever. I mean, you're not required to rent. You could always use it for a family member.
Right.
But if you do rent and have a rental license, yeah, you have to follow the rent table changes every year. So the city publishes the rent limits for different AMI. And basically, yeah, it's up to the renter to enforce that.
I see.
So it's affordable. And I think
75% of AMI average.
Correct.
Okay. So people are doing that so they can get their permits.
That's my theory, but again, we haven't done the full evaluation. So.
Okay.
Well, that conversation was really interesting to me because my first reaction when I have kind of a gut reaction when you say something like you can skip this part if you make it affordable, or like I always kind of wonder how the economics work out of it. Like, are we actually incentivizing affordable units with these rules, or are we actually sort of bludgeoning supply by adding affordability requirements? And so like the way you presented it, my first reaction was like, well, this could cut either way. I have no idea like whether or not you're just limiting supply by affordability rules. So I guess I'm just reaffirming that it would be nice to have the study and have some data so we could look at what it all means.
Yep, and understand the motivation. You know, why did someone create an affordable ADU? Is it because they couldn't meet the standards otherwise, or they felt it was important to be part of that program and they believed in it?
Okay, well, I think clearly we're agreeing that we're gonna listen to council and try to support them when we can with a strong recommendation on moving forward on increasing the supply of ADUs. That's just a statement, not a proposal for a recommendation to vote on.
Can you quickly reiterate the thing that you said in response to my enthusiastic endorsement for lots more ADUs? You said something about like how we need to be strategic about how we make a recommendation.
Oh, yeah.
Can you just summarize that again? So I
Yeah,
can write it
yeah.
down?
Well, again, I think it goes back to our earlier conversation about the brief, the recommendation we drafted. And it's to say, let's do more than, we need to be rah-rah and say, please move forward, but we also need to be strategic and specific and say, move forward here, point to a direction. I think that's our role, part of our role. We can also be technical and give the council technical advice, but I think pointing to specific directions can be of use because there's so many different ways they could go. So if we're focusing on saturation and coming up with a strong recommendation on that they might listen to, I think that's a very useful role for him. I'm not saying we will focus on that, but that could be where we go, and we'll see. Okay, you like that? Good. So I'd like to wrap on ADUs for now, unless anyone has any other comments. I will note, and I'd be happy to share this document that Denver has a new program to incentivize ADUs in West Denver, which is primarily lower income Latino area, by providing various sorts of financial assistance to folks that want to create ADUs in their property, low interest loans, for example. And they have a pilot program. I think they just created their first ADU, and there are about 10 in the works. If anyone wants to see that report, I have a copy. I'd be happy to send it around. It's not completely parallel and germane to Boulder, but I think there's probably some good lessons learned in there. Okay, matters from the staff, item 7.
Yeah, the only thing I have is, agenda items for July and August. Or if anyone has questions for staff or something you want to hear about.
Well, I hope we can revisit a revised recommendation in July and be ready to vote on it. So that should be on the agenda. Do we have any requests for informational sessions? All the ones we've experienced that have been really excellent. Whether it's about the deed restriction program or tonight's presentation on ADUs is certainly, I'm sure, more material that could be covered, but does anyone have a burning desire to learn about any particular area of housing policy or initiative that we could cover in July?
I love the East Boulder sub-community plan presentation that we had. I assumed that what there exists one for something very similar for Alpine Balsam. Maybe it's a matter of me going through and watching old HAB meetings. But I don't know, for some reason, oh yeah, the HHS newsletter that we got was, had mentioned the Alpine Balsam project, and there was a link to it. And I observed that that when you go to the city's project website, we're now in implementation phase, which like, hey, that's great news. What does that mean? Like, it still looks like a war zone over there. So I don't know. I keep hearing about it. I know a little bit about it, but would love to have a presentation if there's one that's ready to go that someone could give.
Well, one option is to go back and listen to council or the HAB meeting. I can give you a quick overview right now, or you could do it a separate time because that's one of my other projects. But yeah, I think you're going to see some changes pretty quickly. So that the deconstruction of the hospital is going to begin probably in the next at least 4 to 6 weeks. So you'll see that block look very different. We are in the design phase for the Greenway, sort of that northern strip along Balsam. So, we'll have some staff is reviewing some initial designs, hopefully in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then we're also ramping up consultants. So the city is hiring a design team to basically come up with a program for the city-owned portion, or well, it's all city-owned, but the future Western City campus, which is the Pavilion building. And then Boulder Housing Partners, which was chosen as the co-developer for the housing portion of the site. They are in the process of hiring their design team. And then those two design teams are going to work together and craft a concept plan for the entire site. So how to stitch together the city and city campus and the housing. How do we meet all the requirements of the form-based code? How do we incorporate the stormwater facility? How do we incorporate district energy, which I think is also very exciting for that site. Trying to basically create the entire block as net zero energy and deploying all those sorts of new technologies. So a lot of design work is going to happen in that implementation phase. And then ideally that would take probably a year, and then we would begin construction of housing and the city pavilion or the city Western campus in 2024. So that's kind of a quick status update, but still a lot more work to go in terms of implementation, but the framework is there. So the area plan was done, there's a vision. The form-based code was adopted. It says exactly how you implement that vision. But now it's up to, get all the details straight. So there isn't really a whole lot to go back to council or planning board or city council. The form-based code basically says you meet the form-based code, you're approved.
That's great. I had bad information that I won't repeat here. So that's all exciting to hear that that things are underway, and it doesn't sound like anything's gummed up. It's like these things just take time.
They do. And it's been challenging with the pandemic too.
Yeah. And
the city is, trying to figure out what are our office needs, right? So the whole environment has changed in the last 2 years. We thought we were going to be relocating people from like office buildings into that one building, and New Britain across the street, or the Brenton building across the street. But now we're, our chief architect is trying to figure out what is the future of work for the city. What does that look like? How much space do we really need? And how do we incorporate things like Age Well West? So at 9th and Arapahoe, our current senior center or older adult center, we would love to relocate that out of the high hazard zone, redevelop that as affordable housing, and move the center to Alpine Balsam. And even build some senior housing there as well. So lots of things happening in that implementation. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good update, Jay. Thank you. A couple of questions. One is BHP likely to be a master developer for the project, or more likely to be just a developer and build all the housing themselves? Is that sort of thing been parsed out yet?
Yeah, well, so Boulder Housing Partners was selected by the city council, approved them as being the co-master developer for the site. They would develop all of the affordable housing. The question right now is, similar to 30 Pearl, do we sell off one of the parcels to a different developer to build ownership? So, there's definitely a strong interest from council in the community for ownership opportunities. That's not what BHP does. BHP builds affordable rentals, right? So I would say minimum of 2 of the 4 blocks will be affordable rentals. The 1 block will be ownership. So the one closest to the park, 9th and Balsam. And then the Broadway and Balsam site, I think that's the big question mark, right? So that could be senior housing. That could be a location for Agewell West. We don't really know for sure. But yeah, but BHP has that decision has been made.
Yeah, thank you. Philip, I would recommend if you're going to review a HAB video, the one where we went over the proposed form-based zoning and sent a recommendation. Council had a lot of good meat in it, and we made a good recommendation on that. So maybe it's a nice example of HAB being effective. And then a question, kind of getting back to what we discussed earlier with the letter and opportunity sites in Boulder. A lot of the things you mentioned that have been in process or are happening in Alpine Balsam are the types of things we put into that letter. Do you think there's some positive parallels between action steps taken to make Alpine Balsam happen and what could happen at TBAP, for example? I think that's a question for Jay.
You got to tell me beforehand, Michael.
I'm feeling even more ruminative than usual tonight, I'm afraid.
So can you repeat your question?
Is what we're proposing in our draft letter, in a way it's shaping up, that has a potential to be a catalyst, the way some of these steps have led to some positive change in outcomes at Alpine Balsam, with maybe some action happening in the next year or two?
I don't know. I mean, that's purely speculative on my part to try to answer that. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, HAB plays an advocacy role, and I think that's a space that you guys should definitely pursue. Yeah, I can't tell you how effective it is or not effective it is.
Right. Okay, well, will the Rockies ever win the World Series? Can you answer that?
That I can tell you. No.
No. Does anyone else want to recommend an agenda item for the July meeting or for a future meeting?
We'll also invite the new planning director to the July meeting.
Nope. And when we get to do some Q&A with him?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
He will have been on the job as well, 6 weeks at that time, probably.
Right.
But that's the only other item I have on the agenda.
That's a good one, though. Thank you. Well, if anyone has agenda items to suggest, we have a month, and please send them to me, copy Jay and Tiffany and Danny. I think we're ready to go to item 8, meeting debrief. I think we lost Danny. He was late to the meeting because he had a flat tire, and I think he'd already told us he was going to have to leave early. So I'll mention again, we have a board vacancy because Jen has resigned. And that's not likely to be filled anytime soon. So we will be proceeding as a 6-person board. We do have a happy hour on the calendar for next Tuesday at Wild Provisions, which is in East Boulder. And some of you have RSVP for that. If you are able to make it, we'd love to see you. I think Jay will be there, Danny, myself, John, and I hope a few others. Anyone who can come, we'd be really happy to see you. Maybe Tiffany. I never met Tiffany in person. I have a bit of news. I've been appointed to another board. It's the Regional Air Quality Council. That's a governor's appointment, and that will have no effect on my HAB work at all. Actually, I hope we'll complement it nicely. I believe strongly that there is a connection between our air quality challenges and our housing issues. That's not an original thought, but that's really why I was appointed to that board that meets monthly, and there's some potential for some land use innovation at the state level coming forward that I hope I'll have a chance to weigh in on. So that starts next month. And I was going to review our discussion about the letter for Danny, but he's not here, so I think we can pass on that. The next meeting is what date?
July 27th.
Excellent. July 27th. That will continue to be a Zoom meeting. We do have this purely social non-business meeting happy hour next Tuesday, June 28th. And hope to see some or all of you there. Does anyone have any other comments before we move to adjourn? Okay, thank you. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Yeah, what? You're enjoying this too much?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, well, maybe Julianne would want to make the motion.
Oh, sure. I'll make
Get her name in the meeting
Great.
minutes.
Okay, so here's the thing. We don't have a quorum. Can we actually adjourn? Maybe not.
Oh, no.
A sleepover.
I think you're going to have to be the second.
I second.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning the June meeting? Hey, good night, everybody. Enjoy the rest of summer. Happy solstice, and hope to see you all next week.
Great.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you.